Hello and welcome. I'm sure many of you can relate to this when I say that common sense, it can go out of the window when it comes to cars. You can push it to one side almost. If your kettle was broken, no questions asked, it's going in the bin. When cars are involved, we seem to think somewhat differently. My friends are certainly guilty of this. They've got a Discovery Series 1 they call Linden. Let's be honest, you're not naming your kettle, are you? Linden was rotten to the core. As someone with a great deal of welding experience, they were eager to get me on side. There's one slight problem. I hate welding rotten cars. I did what any good friend would do. I let them down gently. Cars have been a large part of my life. I've certainly got a back catalogue of previous for building stupid vehicles, so this should be a walk in the park. I sold Jamie my idea to get the Discovery roadworthy without busting out the MIG welder for a 300-hour workout. I now had the responsibility to make this vision that I have sold a reality on a teeny tiny budget. What could go wrong? Stop, bring it back. Time for a history lesson. Back in the 80s, the Rover group could offer you two things. A Defender if you were a farmer, or a Range Rover Classic if you were a lord. As you can see, there's a gaping void in the middle. That's how the Discovery came about. It was basically a car that had appealed to families. As the Rover group was broke, they were exceptionally good at raiding the parts bin. The Discovery was based on the Range Rover Classic chassis minus a couple of the fancy bits on the driveline. The Discovery had rear lights from a Maestro van, door handles from a Morris Marina. The Range Rover Classic were always known as having a good solid chassis, but the bodies, well, they were sketchy. You know, they were known for extensive corrosion. Obviously Discovery 1 was cut from the same cloth. Discovery 2 came about and there was an extensive redesign of the driveline. They'd made the drivability a lot better. They'd pretty much dealt with body corrosion, but somehow they managed to fit a chassis that was terrible. Obviously they fall to pieces. But this parts bin approach makes them excellent candidates for making Frankenstein vehicles because all sorts interchangeable and you could almost make a greatest hits vehicle, if that makes sense. So that leads me up to the next bit. Let's get back to the car in question and we'll tell you all about it.
It's story time.
We came up with this ridiculous idea that we'd put the Discovery 1 body in the bin, we'd purchase a decent D2 body, fit that and have the best of both worlds because you've got a body that's not really going to rot away. I'm not saying they don't rust full stop, but realistically they're half decent. You've got that and you've got the Discovery 1 reliability, and to me that's that perfect mix. So a day after we'd had this discussion, not that Jamie's an eager fella, I get a phone call saying I've bought a car, Sean, and it's perfect, and he's bought it blind from Hull. And
possibly just a fully working Land Rover with no engine.
And what we got was Discovery 2 on a trailer. As I were at work when Jamie were unloading it. I'm not even kidding, it didn't even have steering arms on it. So what had been sold was a Discovery that if he wanted to, he could pretty much just put the 300 engine in and that'd be that. There were no left of it. Watts linkage had been cut on back and no brakes, no steering.
No suspension.
And it was just like,
no interior.
My God. And the inner wings were bloody rotten as well, weren't they, mate? So there were all that to sort out. But I think the thing is, when all's said and done, it's not a bad body, is it? It's, you know, it served its purpose, but it certainly forced us hand that there were no just chuck engine in that and I've
No.
done the one.
It took a lot longer than it
Yeah.
actually should have done.
But at the same time, it's ended up being a good car off the back of that.
Yeah.
And just when you think of what went into it, it's pretty much insane. Because from my recollection, sort of early on, first thing we did was strip the TD5 down to pretty much just what we needed, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that one, it was nice and steady, and even though I've got a garage, if you're doing something at work, you feel like you're at work, and you know, phone rings, you still go down to it, things like that. So this is January. We're in Jamie's front garden stripping. So I'll set the scene. We sort of had them side by side, which you couldn't properly open the door on either. It's that tight. And the Discovery one was maybe half a metre off the house, do you think, Jim?
Yeah.
And we'd pretty much got to the point where we'd done a bit of welding in front of this, completely gutted the thing, and wrapped it all inside. 'Cause the thing was, like we'd said, you know what, you just don't want to be messing about with it again, do you, mate?
You want it to last. You want it to last, don't you? And have as much maintenance free as you possibly can.
Yeah, and well, that's been total idea with it, hasn't it, mate? And we got to a point where that were done, and I think the point where you start thinking this is getting a bit serious is when you start the stripping Discovery one, and you could see sort of dismay in Giselle's face, couldn't you, as we're ripping her old cart a bit. So I don't think she quite expected what we were going to do with the thing.
Yeah. Especially when there was a budget of that, and then I needed a budget of this.
Yeah, but that's exactly it, and it was very much a do the best you can with the constraints you've got. And I'll be honest, mate, when you think of what's been spent on, I don't think you could build a right lot more car for what we've done with it, mate. I think it's bloody incredible. But my word, when we started stripping D1, like, what's your recollection of that?
I just remember being stood in garden with gazebo up in snow, with electric heater on trying to stay warm, painting an engine block.
The action plan was strip the complete interior out of the D1. We then moved on to removing the body harness. But with this, you always think you're going to know where absolutely every mortal bit goes. But by the time a couple of months have passed, you're going to get mixed up with stuff. So, not even kidding, we went round labelling every mortal bit with masking tape, and it makes life a bit easier going back together. And to be fair, mate, when we come up putting it together, we actually needed it.
Yeah.
So we got to the point where full harness is out, any switch gear we were going to use, things like that, and that left us basically with a bare shell on a rolling chassis that was still complete. And then it sort of dawns on you when you've torqued it up and you're like, yeah, we'll just whip body off in garden, it'll be sound. You get to a point where you've actually got a body to take off a Discovery with no lifting gear. You're looking at it thinking, maybe we should have brought this to work to actually do it, but winging it as ever. Ripsaw went through the roof, and the back of it come off easy, mate.
Yeah.
It did. So if you remember, when we tipped the back off, it didn't actually take the floor with it. It just came off, didn't it? And it was just one of the things where you're like, oh, this ain't going to be bad. It's going to be a doddle.
Yeah.
Then we come to doing front section. So front section, it pretty much had complete floor there, A-pillar screen, and it was cut roughly about there.
Yeah.
So we knew we couldn't aim it towards the house because that, well, it'd have just been stupid. So in my infinite wisdom, I thought it'd be a good idea where if we could roll it over the top of the engine and onto the flat, no dramas, easy. And I'll tell you, the biggest thing I wasn't expecting when we started levering this body off were just the way it were collapsing under your pry bars, and it was just collapsing on itself, wasn't it? I'm not even kidding. So we got to the point where when you're tipping anything, there's always a pivotal point where it's going to go and what will be. And as we've started coming up and over the engine, we started getting towards this pivotal point. Everything's going absolutely grand, and I think my biggest fear were just sort of ripping some bits off back at engine and causing a bit of a nightmare. It started going up and over. It just started veering towards out. I remember me and you looking at each other and just going. And like from what I remember, I'm pretty sure it hit front door.
Yeah, it didn't do no damage.
No, but I think when you think it could have been a load worse. It was like a skim on it, and you know, it could have absolutely nailed the thing, couldn't it, mate? But we didn't hit the new body, mate, which
Which we're lucky.
yeah, exactly, mate, exactly. So
Rather
when
hit the house and the bonnet.
yeah, exactly. So when all said and done, I don't think that were a bad outcome, mate.
No. Then we got rid of all that, didn't we?
I'll tell you the truth though. Do you remember, Giselle? What it were almost like a kid waving a grandma off on it, you know, as if we're getting on back at van.
Full body on back of a scrap van.
Yeah. Oh, it were glorious, mate. Glorious.
And then what we're left with, chassis and an engine block in garden and a new shell.
Yeah, so at this point, the TD5 body is still on the TD5 chassis.
Yep.
And we've got a complete rolling, well, Discovery just minus its body.
Yeah.
And at that point, we realistically just could have dumped the D2 on it, and that were that one.
Yeah.
And I know you were looking, well, that looks a bit crusty, this looks a bit crusty. And
We've gone this far, haven't we?
yeah, they were your exact words, we've gone this far, why don't we do a bit more?
Yeah.
And Jamie's talked me into, do you know what, we'll strip it all down, and I'm not, so it got stripped to the point where it was just a chassis, an engine block, a gearbox and a transfer box, wasn't it? That were all it had to it. And I'll tell you something though, after we'd wrapped it all the chassis and stuff and you started putting it back together,
It looked nice, didn't it?
yeah, because there wasn't really budget there to just throw the parts cannon at it and go. So like the shockers were good, just not tidy. We saved all them. The lift kit were good, all powder coated, and your friend helped out with that. And we pretty much just attacked all radius arms, trailing arms with needle guns, and
Yeah.
it just come up nice, didn't it?
It was nice when all parts went back together with new full polybush set. With the green and the yellow like, all together.
And I think thing is, as engines started coming together, I'd sort of managed to talk you out of just putting it back as original. Why don't we make it a little bit spicy at least? And you know, it's no rocket ship, but it's got a bit more go about it. And this all started because I had an old 200 TDI exhaust manifold in shed. And I brought it down. I says to Jamie, well look, you know, we could put something more entertaining on here. And I was looking through cheap turbos that would fit on that manifold, and it ended up being a variable geometry turbo from an Audi A6 2.5 TDI. And sure enough, bolted it up. We got a little controller for it, if you remember.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking at it going, well, why don't we modify intake plenum a bit like these 4B ideas? But there's one thing I don't like about the 4B design. The weld the end where they've cut it off, and that for some reason just bugs me to death.
Yeah.
So we made this twin, and I'll tell you something, mate, well, that twin entry plenum looks beautiful, mate.
It
And it seems like it didn't really cost out to do other than me burning my drill out. But other than that, it were a nice cheap mod, and we made alt intake for it, and and it's nice. And there were one small thing we didn't take into account when we were building all this up. Where's alternator going to? So the alternator, you could physically get it on the engine, but you'd have had that much room to your intake for the turbocharger.
Yeah.
So we're fairly lucky that there was that relocation kit, if you remember.
Yeah. We changed that, didn't we? Did we get rid of the aircon?
Yeah, we got rid of the aircon pump, and alternators now in top left.
Top, yeah.
Which removing the aircon pump in January is a brilliant idea, but when you're in August, like today,
it doesn't quite seem as much of a noble conquest.
No.
So we very much in the garden got to the point where we had complete rolling chassis minus the exhaust system, and at that point common sense prevailed and we knew it had to go to work, because after the first palaver
We've physically done everything we could possibly do in garden, haven't we?
we had, mate, and when you consider time of year and what we were up against, mate, it's some going that, because it wasn't like we had full equipment at workshop
And it
to...
was a Saturday morning.
Yeah, just chipping away, wasn't it? And it were always, I don't know how women put up with this, because if you remember, like 6 o'clock in the morning.
Needle gun.
Yeah,
On
exactly.
chassis,
And
whacking out neighbours up.
yeah. But are you bothered?
No.
But we just naturally got to that point. And that was a turning point for me, I think, when it went to work, where I stopped actually enjoying doing it. And I know that sounds weird.
Because it felt like a chore.
Yeah,
I had to do it at work.
Yeah, because you feel like you're working, and even though the working conditions are inherently better, you don't have that hobby feeling to it anymore. And I think you probably picked up on that vibe. I've always found my face is good at telling how I feel without me having to say anything.
Oh, I've never noticed.
But the actual body on week, I can't remember, did we do it? I'm pretty sure we did this over 2 days, mate, the body on. So if you remember, we had we got the Discovery 2 body separated, all cleaned up, needle gunned and sorted.
We got rid of that chassis, didn't we?
Yeah, dragged that chassis out and we wrapped it that evening.
Because we had the body sat on the top,
Yes,
didn't
we did, mate, we did.
Yeah.
Then
There were 1 or 2 spots of welding on doors, weren't they?
oh yes,
on
yes,
passenger
yes.
side, which,
I'll have no doubt been absolutely thrilled about.
yeah. So that all got tidied up, didn't it? Yeah, then it all got wrapped and painted underneath. Same colour, didn't want it? Body, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we actually had it mixed specially, if you remember.
Yeah.
I'll be when you look at colour now, mate, it certainly doesn't look bang on to paint code to my eye at least.
No.
But it's there or thereabouts in it, mate. There's no denying that.
It looks better than black.
Yeah, certainly. I think thing is, as soon as you just look at any black body protection, you just look at the seal, don't you? Yeah. But I think once when you think of it logically, the time we got to the point where the body on and it was a moving car again was bloody quick, wasn't it, mate?
Yeah.
We'd
Drive it in and out of shop rather than pushing it.
yeah, and I'll be honest, the body went on dead simple. We had to make some spaces up for rear body mounts, but it was nothing like I were expecting.
No.
There are a few niggly, like we had to modify the pedal boxes, if you remember.
Yep.
That needed
Did we
modifying.
put the TD5 base on with the Discovery 1 pedal? It's quite
I can't remember if we used modified the Discovery 2 setup or modified the Discovery 1 setup. It has been a while in my defence. So that 100% needed modified, and we had to make a hybrid of the heater matrices. I'm pretty sure we used the Discovery 2 matrix and the pipes that came out of the side and met with the holes on the Discovery 2 body we had to go with. That needed messing with. But other than that, it was really plain. Body loom went in nice and easy, didn't it?
Yeah.
There were no real drama about it. So I think one of the best changes we ever did with this was converting to the Borg Warner transfer box, and it wasn't really out of choice. Once we got the vehicle back together, first road test, it was clear. It were whining its head off. I think I've put 3 LT230 transfer boxes in this and 2 R380s in the 10 years or so Giselle's had the car. But obviously, common sense would be like, oh, I'll go get one from Ashcroft. But she never had money for that, so we're always an 100 quid gearbox or 100 quid transfer box and sort of get on with it. And I knew from owning a Range Rover Classic in the past that even though the Discovery is based off it, the Range Rover drives a load better. You know, from a road holding point of view, it's absolutely cracking. And they're just so much smoother and more well-mannered. And the only things that are really different, obviously a late LSE would be on air, you know, we've not gone that far, but the transfer box, when you take up drive, they're gentle, they're not snatchy, and most people are going to turn around, look at it and go, well, it doesn't have diff lock, but it does in a way. So when you lose traction on one axle with a viscous coupling, the idea is that power is then put to the opposite axle, and it does it automatically. So if you're in a road situation, it's a little bit snowy, whatever like that, you know, you're not having to stop, engage diff lock to get some additional traction, because obviously with the diff lock not engaged, it's a one wheel, you know, one wheel spin, sorry, you know, that's it, it's done. Obviously, at least with the VCU, you know, you're automatically getting it to another one on the rear, and that combined with how much better they are for road manners, for me it were a no-brainer, and I'm glad I managed to persuade you into doing it. Just try to find them now in this day and age with all the little trinkets you need to convert it is a bit of a painful situation, where obviously this is mainly going to be a road vehicle, which is sort of ironic as we're pottering down this little lane here, but I dare say if we get stuck on here, there's some big problems. But that's the thing that makes a Discovery a cracking vehicle, because you just have this option where you can just decide it's a lovely day. Do you know what, I'm just going to go have a look around here, and you don't get that with a normal car, mate, which I've not had a proper Land Rover for God knows how long, and still now, mate, I come pottering down here with a big smile on my face, mate. I know I'm probably going to get swore at by a couple of ramblers, and I don't mind that, mate. I don't mind that one bit, and you know, I think the thing is, as long as you're sensible and you're not taking mick, you know, there's no wrong with a bit of green laning. Obviously, this is a road, you know, before anyone starts going mad at me, you know, you are allowed to drive down here. Kind chap stopping with his dog. Yeah. Little wave as well, mate. Happy guy. We like them. But for me, this is something I really enjoy, and do you know, I think the thing is for me, when I think of getting in a wash, oh, where am I going to put it? Where, you know, do I have time to keep repairing it and rest of it? But every time I get in one, mate, it's a great big smile on my face, like a kid again, mate, and I'm buzzing. You know, days out at Parkwood and stuff like that.
It tells you, don't you?
Yeah, I know what it tells me, mate. It's like being a big kid again.
It tells you that you need to buy yourself a Land Rover.
Yeah. So after we'd built this, Jamie's a big Mitsubishi man. He's from Bradford, he's misguided, I do apologise. But he loves his Shogun, and obviously it's a 2.8 with Tiptronic gearbox, and on paper it's more powerful and it's faster. So he was extremely disappointed to find out the Disco's faster. the old 300 with its little VNT turbo, not just once, twice left you looking disappointed and frustrated.
Not for long.
So I'm not even kidding. That level of upset led him to purchasing an M57 engine. Which, guess what? Who's going to have to then fit this M57? But I've had a Shogun myself in the past, and for me, I'll give them it for road manners. The drive far nicer.
Yeah.
You know, it's more car-esque, but off-road, no live axles on the front. You know, I just had a bad experience at Tom getting towed out all day by my mate's Defender, mate, and I'm just like, do you know what, this isn't for me. I much prefer the Disco.
That's the joys of going off-roading, isn't it?
It is, and
getting stuck and getting pulled out.
but I think the thing is, I've never been rose-tinted glasses where I say Land Rovers are the best vehicle in the world. Like, I do have a real soft spot for British cars. I just understand also that they are a bit flawed. They do give you problems, and sometimes the design used makes you question life.
Yeah.
But there's one thing they have that no one can take away from them. They have character. And I don't even think as a Mitsubishi man, you can't say one of these has character, mate.
Does look alright.
But thing is, right, imagine someone's filming this outside, mate. Your Shogun ain't looking this good pottering up here, mate.
Of course it is.
This car could have anyone from a flat cap farmer driving it to an hooligan, mate, and no one really looks twice, mate. It's a car for everybody.
Yeah.
Not like your Japanese toy.
Okay.
But if nothing else, it'll be a quick Japanese toy.
It'll be quicker than this.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. Because this isn't even mine.
No. So he's gone to all this effort and it's not even his, and he doesn't really like it.
Just like throwing money away.
Yeah.
Are you happy with the overall finish on the Land Rover?
I'll tell you the truth, I think the only things I'd have liked to have done different, in a perfect world, a genuinely modern, powerful engine,
Yeah.
and a ZF6 auto box would have made it, I think.
Yeah.
I still kept Borgy transfer box. Engine wise, my heart says something like a V8, maybe a BMW M67, which is 7 Series engine, but you don't really get them over here. They were
No.
all in Poland. I think that I'd like. Yeah, big diesel. That modern auto box behind it, ZF6s can run with minimal engine input.
Yeah.
You know, I think that for me, you'd have a really wafty motor that, you know, same sort of thing.
Looks the part and sounds the part.
Exactly, and you're not struggling to hear yourself think through like that. It is loud, mate. There's no, you know, there's no denying that. It's still a noisy old 300, isn't it, when all said and done on mud tyres. But I don't think you really realise the scale of this car until you see it next to another one, mate.
Yeah,
It's enormous, isn't it? It's enormous.
It stands a lot taller than a normal one, doesn't it?
It does, mate, and I think that's what really makes it, because you look at it and it looks relatively stock, but
It's different.
it's just a monster.
People
And,
don't know why it's different.
yeah, and if you've got a really keen eye, and I've said to Jamie numerous times, the only way you're picking up it's a D1 is if you look at the stud pattern on the wheels,
Yeah.
and that's, you know, I think a lot of Land Rover people I've seen look at it, just no clue whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I like that bit of intrigue about a car. And she's got, you know, I know this has been done before with them, you know, so it wasn't anything that's massive, but you might be really lucky and see this D2 at the side to give you some size comparison. But the thing is, with how attached Giselle is to this car, she's got something that should realistically last her for years. And we've not had to spend eternity welding the thing, because I personally found I just don't enjoy welding old knackered motors. And thing is, you could have spent a fortune in repair panels and rest of it, and you know, when you think the body cost 600 quid, didn't it, mate?
Yeah.
And
just the two inner arches.
yeah, you'd have had more than that, and I wouldn't have. I'll tell you, if it had come to really having to weld the thing top to bottom, I don't think I would have done, mate, because I'd have known whatever we put on, there's still the rest of it to go wrong later, and I just don't enjoy it, mate. I think that's cold hard truth.
So if you were to do your own Land Rover show, like
Yeah,
the ultimate Land Rover,
just something personally for me.
yeah, just for you.
Yeah.
Like if you were to build it for yourself, like what would you build?
So I think when you're looking at an infinite context, it's hard, but just for argument's sake, something that I know I could make work, and say, what's a reasonable budget for building a car? 30 grand?
Yeah.
I'd probably go with a, and this is going to undo everything I've done with this now, I'd go with a Range Rover Classic on a galvanised chassis from a D2.
Yeah.
You've got the bit of a wider track on the D2, and for someone that's just completely going to be road use, you know, the road manners are a bit better. Same, I'd keep the Borg Warner transfer box, and what would I do engine wise in something like that? Same again, I'd 100% be going with a ZF6 gearbox, but I think engine wise I would go for the inline 6 AJ16 from the Jaguar XJR X300. I'd put the supercharger in the bin and twin turbo the thing, and for me it's still British.
It's got everything on it you want.
Yeah, and you know, chances are you've almost got a British 2JZ then, mate. And you know, I think that for me the style of the Range Rover Classic is what makes it, and then big seats with armrests in back, you've got that, a good thumping petrol engine, a chassis that's not going to go wrong with wider track, mate. That for me I think is just like the pinnacle.